Yep. Welcome, everyone. We're just admitting a few more people who've just logged on, and then we'll start in a minute. Some people seem to have a few technical issues. Anyway, we'll start regardless. So hello and welcome, everyone. This is the second Bacchus Marsh Town Hall meeting that we are conducting in this virtual space. Unfortunately, due to COVID-19 restrictions and social distancing rules, we are not able to Sorry, the system just wanted to log me out. As I was saying, unfortunately, due to COVID-19 restrictions and social distancing rules, we can't have this meeting in person. Therefore, we set up this virtual space to have a conversation about the Bacchus Marsh Eastern Link Road and for you to be able to provide some questions and for us to provide some answers. Excuse me, before we start, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners and custodians of the lands upon which we are meeting here today, noting that in this virtual environment, these lands may be many and varied. I would like to pay my respect to their elders past, present, and emerging. And I extend that respect to any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples here today. Before we get into it, I will just run through some housekeeping for those who are not quite familiar with a Zoom meeting. In the top right-hand corner, there's a view button. You can change the view to have just the speaker pop up on your screen. In this case, it would be just my face, or you can have the screen to show all the panel. Whatever selection you choose, it doesn't interfere with the presentation that we'll be showing you later, so you will be able to see that regardless. If you're on a mobile or on a tablet, you will have to swipe left or right to change the view. We're also recording this session. This is so that we can provide a copy on the webpage for later reference. So you will be able to go back and have a look at the presentation in your own time and also have another listen to the questions and answers. And anybody who can't make it today and won't be able to attend any of the other sessions will be able to have a look at the recording and hopefully learn some more about the project. I've placed you all on mute. That's mainly to avoid any background noises and distractions. And I also ask you to keep your video off, again, just to avoid distractions, but it looks like everybody's got their video off anyway. So that's it from me at this point. I'll hand over to Michael Bailey, who is the Regional Director for the Grampians region with Regional Roads Victoria, and also Gil Richardson, who is the Project Director for this project. He will be taking you through the presentation and answering your questions later on. At this point, we've got about 10 or 11 participants. I would say that after the presentation, we just have an open conversation. I'll allow you all to unmute yourself and we can have a conversation. You can ask questions. If it gets more participants, we might have to change to have just a chat. At the bottom of your screen, you should see the chat function. And if you open that, you can send in your questions. And I ask you to send them to me, Department of Transport, so that way I can make sure that we don't miss one question. And I'll be reading them out to the panel, but we'll see how we go after the presentation, whether we need to go that far or whether we can just have a conversation. Also, next to that chat button, there should be a polls button. That is just a brief poll to give us feedback on what you thought about this session and if there's anything that we can improve on. During the presentation or at the end of this meeting, please feel free to go in and provide your multiple answer questions. So with that, I'll hand over to Michael Bailey and we can start the session.
Good morning or good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Bacchus Marsh Eastern Link Project information session. I'm going to be very quick. I too need to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands in which we meet. I'm currently on Jabberong land and I'd like to pay my respects to the elders past, present and emerging. I'm going to head straight over to Gil now. Gil Richardson's our project director and he has the presentation and all the information that you want to hear. So over to you, Gil.
Thanks, Michael.
Gil, 1 second just before you start. George, you came on board a bit later. I was just saying that I would request that you turn your video off just so to avoid distractions, but also I don't know if you realize that this session is being recorded just in case you don't want to be seen. That's basically it, just as a courtesy. Thank you for that. Sorry, Gil.
Thanks, Dina, and welcome everyone to this town hall meeting. Just confirming, can you see the PowerPoint presentation, please? All good?
Yeah, but not the presentation slide.
Okay, all right. Sorry.
While you're sorting that out, Wendy, welcome to the session. We just had a bit of an introduction. I'll ask you to stay on mute just to avoid any background noises and distractions and so on. And I also request that you maybe turn off your video, again, just to avoid distractions, but also just in case you're not aware, the session is being recorded just in case you don't want your video to be seen. And we will put the recording on the web page. Thank you.
I've reshared. Is that any better, please, Dina? Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll make it. Yeah, thank you. I'll make a start then. Again, thank you everyone and welcome to the virtual town hall meeting. Hi, I'm Gil Richardson. I'd like to take you through this short presentation on the Bacchus Marsh Eastern Link Road project. The Bacchus Marsh Eastern Link Road project aims to identify a route for a future road that will take traffic, especially heavy vehicles, out of the Bacchus Marsh town centre. The road will be east of the town centre and connect Gisborne Diggers Rest Comida Road intersection to Geelong Bacchus Marsh Road, either at Woolpack Road or the Parwin Exford Road intersections. The population of Bacchus Marsh and Mattingley is expected to double by 2041. The Bacchus Marsh Urban Growth Framework identifies that a north-south link road to the east of Bacchus Marsh would help to ease congestion associated with the predicted growth of new communities to the east of Bacchus Marsh, particularly the Miramoo and Parwin Station precinct structure plan areas. The road will enable access to and from the future Miramoo residential precinct and the Parwin Station precinct. While this project will present a future alignment in the Moorabool Shire planning scheme, no funding has been made available to build the future road. The objectives on your screen were determined in consultation with key stakeholders. Objectives for the project include achieving a balance of economic, social, environmental outcomes associated with the transport, consistent with the Transport Integration Act 2010, in particular, the integration of transport and land use and environmental sustainability. Planning for a north-south road has a number of key constraints, and it is not always possible to avoid these constraints, but significant investigation has been undertaken to minimise impacts where avoidance is not possible. We are currently at phase 3 of this project, but I'll recap on phase 1 and 2 in the next slides. Phase 1, objectives and study area development, initially investigated or identified 200 corridor options, identified feasible start and end points, identified 5 study areas, and undertook community engagement in 2019, including a number of one-on-one discussions. Regional Roads Victoria sorted through over 700 pieces of feedback from the Bacchus Marsh community and considered alternative options that would not impact the Avenue of Honour and areas of significant ecology. Phase 2, options development. 87 route combinations were identified within or in close proximity to the 5 study areas. Scoring and sensitivity testing was undertaken. Options removed that did not meet project objectives, removed the lowest scoring options, and final scoring of 69 options undertaken. Phase 3, the options shortlisting. Initially, top 10 route options were identified. Traffic modelling, cultural heritage assessments, flora and fauna field surveys were undertaken. 4 stakeholder workshops were held between June and September to discuss the top 10 routes. From September to November, 2 additional routes, an alternative south of the freeway, the Parwin alternative, was identified as a result of further investigations. And in November, 3 route options and an alternative for south of the freeway were shortlisted for community engagement. The options shortlisting multi-criteria assessment, 18 criteria were considered as part of the options shortlisting phase, covering economic, social and environment. The weighted scores form the basis for the final 3 routes and the Parwin alternative route. The shortlisted options are available on the Regional Roads Victoria website and the social pinpoint map. I'll take you through them now. Option A, starting at the corner of Gisborne Road and Diggers Rest Comida Road, following the Bences Road corridor around onto Flanagan's Drive to a new eastern interchange, and then a road from the eastern interchange along the bottom of the Parwin escarpment to Woolpack Road and the corner of Geelong Bacchus Marsh Road. Transport benefits for this option are moderate, and it's a moderate impact on ecology, has a lower impact on the Merrimoo development potential, the Bacchus Marsh Irrigation District and state and local heritage. Option B, also starting at the Diggers Rest Comida Road intersection with Gisborne Road, goes south east of Gisborne Road and intersects with the new freeway interchange with the Western Freeway, utilises the existing Western Freeway to a new eastern interchange, and then again a new road along the bottom of the Parwin escarpment, connecting into Woolpack Road and the Geelong Bacchus Marsh Road intersection. transport benefits are moderate. This option significantly impacts the Bacchus Marsh irrigation district, has a moderate impact on golden sunmoth habitat, has a lower impact on the Merrimoo development and state and local heritage. Option C, starting at the same intersection, utilising the existing Gisborne Road corridor, upgraded to 4 lanes. That's 2 lanes in each direction. Utilising the existing Western Freeway down to the Eastern Interchange and along the bottom of the Parwin Escarpment, the same as options A and B. Transport benefits are lower. It's a lower impact on the Merrimoo and Parwin Station development potential, lower impact on the Bacchus Marsh irrigation district, ecology and state and local heritage. The alternative southern route can connect to all 3 options I've just taken you through and provides an alternative route from the Western Freeway to the Bacchus Marsh Geelong Road at the Parwin Exford Road intersection. It has potential to provide access for the Parwin Station PSP. It's shorter length compared to a route at the bottom of the escarpment. The interactive map has further information about each shortlisted route. An online survey is incorporated into the map. We would appreciate your feedback on the routes. However, this is not a popular vote. This is about finding the best route while balancing all those competing priorities and constraints. Please refer to Regional Roads Victoria's website and search for Bacchus Marsh Eastern Link Road for further details. Next steps. Over the next 6 months, we'll be analysing the feedback we receive from this engagement period, as well as technical reports and feedback from key stakeholders. Mid-2021, we anticipate to be able to determine a preferred route, or mid to late 2021, which will best balance all of the competing aspects and impacts. We will then start the formal planning approval process. In late 2021, early 2022, you as the community will have the opportunity to provide feedback via the formal submissions process in the public exhibition phase of the project. All formal submissions and technical reports will become part of the formal panel hearing process in early 2022 before the final route is declared. Thank you for your interest. I'm now going to stop sharing my screen and open up to live Q&A, and Michael and myself will try and answer as many questions as we can, or we'll take them on notice and include them in a frequently asked questions document that will be available on our website.
Thank you, Gil. Thanks for taking us through that presentation. Your voice did drop in and out a bit. There seems to be a bit of a volume issue. Now I've unmuted everyone, so you should all be able to post any questions. Feel free to mute yourself if you prefer. So has anybody got any questions? Well, Gil, looks like you did a brilliant job explaining everything. No questions about
Hi there,
the
this
routes?
is Sid.
Yes, go ahead.
Hello, you able to hear me?
Yes, Sid, yep.
Yeah, that's good. So I've seen in the pack that there is no funding available at this stage. So how does that work? So let's say after the approval in 2022, are there any plans to acquire the funding, or how does the work start?
I'm happy to, Michael might be best placed to answer that question. Yeah.
Yeah, so at this stage, great question, Sid. At this stage, it's a planning project, so we need to go through a full process to make sure we get the planning right. Once we have the planning right, a preferred route alignment, and that being supported within the planning schemes, we then seek construction funding. Now that construction funding has to go through a formal budget process, and we'll work through that as we progress through this planning process. So they run concurrently in some ways, but separately in other ways. So it's a formal process that we have to seek.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Sid. Anybody else got a question?
Hi, Sue, can you hear me?
Yes.
I attended the session on Friday. In that session, you said that the trees, the river red gums that were 100 years old were going to not cut down. I did mention that to another party who said that there's actually river red gums that are a lot older than 100 years old. Are all the trees, the river red gums 100 years and older, going to not be removed as part of the process?
Thanks for the question. If I understand, I think the question was around removal of river red gums. I've had a little bit of feedback there. Apologies. I think the question in the previous session was around whether or not any trees in the Avenue of Honour would be removed, and the answer to that question was no, because the route goes via the Eastern Interchange. In relation to the river red gums, I'm following that up with the project teams and to be clear on what impact that might have.
I actually did ask about avenue trees as well as the river red gums, and it was stated in your last section that the trees over 100 years old wouldn't be removed, and you could actually go around them. But apparently our trees older than 100 years old will remain.
I think what I was sorry, go, Dean.
No, I was just saying I've got a bit of difficulties understanding the question. Did you get it, Gil? Otherwise, I'd ask that you maybe in the chat function write the question in, just so that we don't miss it.
Yeah. I think it was reference to the age of the trees and the 100-year-old trees, which was referring to the Avenue of Honour trees. And as I said earlier, these route shortlisted options avoid the state registered Avenue of Honour. So there's no trees impacted by these options. If you're referring to, again, river red gums that may be 100 years older or more, that was a question that we did take on notice on Saturday to follow up.
We can't hear you.
I'm typing because you said you couldn't hear me.
It's very hard to hear you. Did that answer your question?
No, you said you focused on notice. You didn't answer the question.
Yes, we'll take it on notice. And as Gil said before, we'll collate all the questions that have been asked in these 3 sessions and prepare a frequently asked questions document that will be available on the webpage. So any questions? Yeah. Unfortunately, the reception isn't very good. So all the questions that have asked and been answered will be collated and put on the webpage for future reference. I'm sorry about the connection, Councillor Dudzik. I hope you can hear us. I'm now getting a bit of an echo. Anybody else?
Steve's got his hand raised. Stephen Patsinus. Go ahead, Stephen, if you want to unmute.
I'll unmute you.
Yeah. I was just wondering if you can go through the payments for landowners that may be affected by, just go through the process for deciphering what amount they may be distributed if they were to be affected by Route A or Route B or Route C.
Okay. Thanks, Stephen. The first step is, at the moment, we're having individual landowner meetings with landowners that are either directly impacted by the routes or are nearby or adjacent to the routes. If you think you've been directly affected or nearby but haven't received a letter, please let us know. But we did distribute a number of letters to all the landowners that we felt were directly or indirectly impacted, and we've already started to engage with them one-on-one. That's probably step one. Step two would be to, as Michael mentioned, finish the planning process and actually have a preferred route within the Moorabool Shire planning scheme via, where necessary, public acquisition overlay. And then at that step, then we can have discussions with our property services team and impacted landowners about what that means, particularly what that means prior, as Michael said, construction would be a separate but potentially concurrent process in terms of finding funding for that project. So what happens in the meantime when the planning scheme is in the public acquisition overlay, sorry, is in the planning scheme prior to construction? How do we deal with any impacts that might have for individual property owners?
Okay, thank you.
Stephen, if you want to arrange a one-on-one meeting with Gil and Julie, feel free to either send us an email on bacchusmarsh@roads.vic.gov.au or ring us on 133778, and we can give you a call back and arrange a time. Felicity, you had your hand up next.
Yep, perfect.
Sorry, you're on mute.
Oh, sorry. Hi, thank you. I'm from the National Trust of Australia, Victoria, and our primary interest in this issue has been in relation to the Avenue of Honour, but we're also interested in other ecological and heritage impacts that might arise from the project. My question is the Development Options Assessment Report going to be exhibited publicly before the preferred route is announced?
Yeah, thanks very much, and Felicity. And yes, we are also, as I mentioned earlier, very interested in ecology impacts. Obviously, the Avenue of Honour, Hopetoun Cemetery, etc. There are other heritage impacts there. In terms of the options assessment report, so starting in 2021, we will be preparing an options assessment report for the preferred alignment, and I would anticipate that at least a summary of that would be made available at the appropriate time.
Okay, my concern is that there's very little information that's been provided about the proposed options. So it will be very difficult for stakeholders to provide informed feedback on the routes. And you know, I also note that the consultation period on this is fairly short. Once the preferred route is announced, obviously it becomes more difficult to look at alternative options. So I'm wondering what opportunities the community will have between now and the announcement of the preferred route to look at more detailed documentation.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I appreciate the 3-week engagement period, you know, and I know there's a number of other engagements going on and other projects in Moorabool, so we do appreciate that. I think as we have been having a number of key stakeholder meetings, so I think if the National Trust wanted to have a separate briefing by the project team, we would happily undertake that. In terms of doing further engagement, I mean, I think even into the new year, we're not saying that everything stops on the 18th of December. If we need to continue to have individual meetings with property owners or stakeholders, we will continue to do that. So, yeah. So, I mean, maybe if we could get your details, or you could send us an email, as Dina said, then we could perhaps arrange a separate briefing. Yeah.
Great, I'll send you an email.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
That'd be great.
Appreciate that.
Thank you, Felicity. I think Wendy, you had your hand up.
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to check how extensive the farmer and irrigator consultation has been versus the generic landowner consultation, in the sense that I went to a couple of the community sessions that were held last year, I think it was, and I also recall having conversations with a few of the local farmers in the area who said they knew nothing about it. And I just wanted to understand how much work had been done at that level, because obviously all of the options go through farmland and the irrigation district.
Yes.
And will have varying impacts on some really viable farm operations in Bacchus Marsh.
Yes.
So I just wanted to understand how much consultation had actually taken place with those farmers and irrigators.
Yeah, no, thanks, Wendy. Well, firstly, the landowner letters that I was talking about, that includes farmers and irrigators if they're affected by those routes. And as I said, we've started having some of those conversations with some of those landowners that are irrigators or farmers. In terms of last year's consultation, and Julie could correct me if I'm incorrect here, but after last year's community information sessions, there were quite a lot of, again, landowner meetings. That included a large number of irrigators to get their feedback on those original 5 study areas from mid-2019. And those discussions have informed the way some of the alignments are to try and minimise those impacts on those irrigation areas following those discussions with those landowners. And that will continue now as we refine the 3 options and the part 1 alternative, to keep having those landowner discussions, irrigator meetings about how we can continue to minimise the impacts, either through tweaking the alignment or narrowing the footprint to make sure they can continue their businesses, and we understand the impact. And also Southern Raw Water have been a key player, I suppose, in the stakeholder meetings, and they've been putting their views about the strategic importance of the irrigation land. We also have to be mindful of, I know that there's a number of consultations going on at the moment, but the Department of Land, Water and Planning are also had a discussion paper on green wedges in agricultural land, more broadly across Victoria, but Bacchus Marsh is a key part of that particular discussion paper and current consultation. So there is a lot going on, and we're trying to best integrate with what they're doing, what the Victorian Planning Authority are doing as well.
Yeah, thank you for that, because I know there were a couple of farmers who were adversely impacted when the Anthony's cutting realignment was done back, 10 or so years ago.
Yeah,
so,
yes.
So I'm kind of mindful that their input into this process is one of the most important from a number of perspectives, I would think.
Yeah, we certainly acknowledge, the irrigation district is a key factor, along with obviously ecology constraint and heritage constraints. So there is a lot going on to try and deal with in trying to find a suitable route. But yeah, we definitely have them high on our agenda in terms of trying to minimise impact where possible.
Yeah, that's correct, Gil.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sid, did you want to ask another question, or have you still got your hand up from before?
No, I just have one more question, if that's okay.
Go for it. Absolutely.
Yep, sure. Thank you. Finalizing this preferred route, we've got the timelines now, but does it have a sort of impact to the overall PSP planning?
The precinct structure planning, that's obviously being coordinated by the Victorian Planning Authority, and we're trying to align our timelines as best we can, noting that they've got a process to deal with as well. I've had a number of discussions with their senior people around staying connected, but more importantly, trying to make sure that the timelines are aligned. So, for example, Victorian Planning Authority are having a workshop with invited stakeholders for precinct structure planning for Parwin and Miramu, and that's, I think it's this coming Thursday. And the options, and we've provided all of the information from our projects of where those alignments go, so that we can have some hopefully fruitful discussions about how transport and land use integrate, and hopefully making sure that their timelines and our timelines continue to align as best we can.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Sid. Stephen,
Thanks for that.
your hand up, or? Did you have a question? No, okay. Anybody else got a question? No. Okay, we'll still stay online for a few minutes in case you think of something. I just want to remind you that at the bottom of your screen there is a polls function. If you wouldn't mind providing us feedback so that we can improve on our session, that would be fantastic. SFJ has now got their hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, hi. This is just a quick question. Sort of a separate project, but the Western Victorian Transmission Network project has got a lot of visibility in Bacchus Marsh. They have mentioned that they were looking at maybe going from north to south around Long Forest area. Just wondering if you guys have had any discussions with them about maybe shared infrastructure, corridors.
Thanks for the question. So within the broader Department of Transport, there's a planning area that are involved in the transmission line environmental effects statement technical reference group. That's a bit of a mouthful, sorry. And we've been, as a project team, providing information through them as a conduit for that process. But I do understand that from what we've seen is that there is that north-south alignment that you're talking about now. I haven't got the details in front of me, but I think there were potential corridors to the west of Long Forest and also to the east of Long Forest. The one to the west of Long Forest would obviously potentially impact on possibly both option A and B. And whether that can be shared or not, we haven't got to that level of detail. We'd have asked around what's the sort of spans that they're talking about from east to west and from north to south, and how that could be accommodated within a road reserve, what sort of footprints those structures would take up and how that would be influenced. But at this stage, we're providing information through to that team in the Department of Transport, and they're then relaying that information, if you like, to the technical reference group discussions.
Okay, thanks, Gil. Good answer.
Thank you. Anybody else? I'll just plug our email address again. It's bacchusmarsh@roads.vic.gov.au if you want to send us an email about feedback or suggestions or ideas, or if you want to request a one-on-one session. Excuse me. You can also ring our call centre 133778 and request that the project team call you back. And then we can arrange a time for that discussion to happen. The survey about feedback on the 3 routes is online now on our webpage. If you go to regionalroadsvictoria.gov.au and search for Bacchus Marsh Eastern Link, the project page, and there's links to the what we call the interactive map, where you can have a closer look as to where the routes go and provide feedback through our survey. Excuse me. You can also, if your internet connection isn't great, or you don't want to fill out an online survey, please feel free to ring us or send us an email, and we can send out a hard copy version of the survey and of the route information as well for those who want. Or if you've got neighbours or friends who are not on the internet, feel free to reach out and we can send it out per mail.
Yeah, I just wanted to say also this is a new way for us to present a project to the community. Obviously with COVID we can't meet you face to face, which is, for us it's always a great time for us to meet and greet and see you all. We probably would have hoped to see a lot more people on these meetings. One thing, I guess, because of that, it'd be great if you talk to your neighbours, talk to your friends, talk to the people in the community, and have those discussions with others who can't, like as Dean is saying, who can't have, don't have access to internet, or finding it difficult maybe with reception or issues or anything like that. So that you're all working together as a community to understand what this project's about and what we're presenting to you all. So yeah, I guess it brings you all together as a community.
Thanks, Julie. Okay, I don't want to flog a dead horse, but if there's no more questions, we set the meeting for an hour, so we've still got 18 minutes if somebody wants to ask. No? Okay. Well, I guess in that case, I'll be suggesting that we end the meeting. As we said, feel free to reach out through the other avenues to contact us if you need. If you remember a question afterwards that you think you should have asked, feel free to shoot us an email or give us a ring. And yes, well, thank you very much for your time this afternoon. Appreciate that you've taken the time and the interest to learn more about the project. As I say, at the bottom of your screen, there should be a pause button. If you feel inclined to provide feedback, that would be great. Otherwise, I'll say this is probably, I'll call the end of the meeting. And I wish you all a very happy afternoon and stay safe, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for attending all.
Thank you.
Thanks, bye everyone. Just have to stop recording.
Yeah, I'll stop recording now.